Hello everyone. So the last program in chapter 4 is slot machine simulation. So a slot machine is a gambling device. A slot machine is a gambling device that the user inserts money into and then pulls a lever or presses a button. The slot machine then displays a set of random images. If two or more of the images match, the user wins an amount of money that the slot machine dispenses back to the user. Create a program that simulates a slot machine. When the program runs, it should do the following. Ask the user to enter the amount of money he or she wants to enter into the slot machine. Instead of displaying images, the program will randomly select a word from the following list. So this list. Right, so to select a word, the program can generate a random number in the range of 0 through 5. If the number is 0, the selected word is cherries. If the number is 1, the selected word is oranges, and so forth. So 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The program should randomly select a word from this list 3 times and display all 3 of the words. If none of the randomly selected words match, the program will inform the user that he or she has won $0. If 2 of the words match, the program will inform the user that he or she has won 2 times the amount entered. If 3 of the words match, the program will inform the user that he or she has won 3 times the amount entered. The program will ask whether the user wants to play again. If so, these steps are repeated. If not, the program displays the total amount of money entered into the slot machine and the total amount won. And it added this decision structures here. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm missing any text. All right, I'll just leave it there. So this is going to be like a regular slot machine simulation. So sometimes you go to the casino, you pull a lever, and then you see let's say 3 pictures, and if they all match, you win money. You win money. So it's going to be something similar to that. We're going to create, instead of using images, we're going to be using words. All right, words. And so the user is going to insert money, and then basically based on what happens, based on how many matches you get, you get money. So we are going to program this, and as we do this, as we program it, it will make sense. So I'll just go ahead and start, and I'll create the class. I call it slot machine simulation, and I'll create the main method. Sorry about that. Sorry. My typing is not the best, so sorry about that. So let's start from the top, basically. All right, so it says the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask the user to we're going to ask the user to enter the amount of money he or she wants to enter into the slot machine. So since we're going to be accepting input from the user, we have to use one of Java's features for accepting input from the user. So we have a couple of options. We have the scanner or the J-option pane. For this one, I'm going to choose to use the J-option pane just because for programs like this, it looks nicer on it. But again, I think I've said it in other videos, but you can also use a scanner class to do this, but I'm just going to choose to use a J-option pane. So to use the J-option pane, we have to import it. We have to import the class so that this program has access to it. So to import the J-option pane, I'm going to type import javax.swing.joption pane. So now I've imported the J-option pane class, so this program has access to it. Now with the J-option pane, we don't have to create an object. We can just go ahead and use it. Unlike the scanner classes, with the scanner class, we have to go ahead and create an object. With the J-option pane, we don't have to. So we just go ahead and use it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the user to enter the amount of money he or she wants to enter into the slot machine. And I'm going to do that with the J-option pane show input dialog. Okay, I'm going to type J option pane. I'm just going to close the space. J option pane dot show inputs dialog. And the show input dialog is basically going to ask the user. It's going to ask the user a question and then allow the user to type in a response. Okay, so I'm going to type in. I'm just going to say insert money. Okay, so this is going to act as our simulation for asking the user to insert money. So insert money. So the user is going to type in money as opposed to inserting an actual physical coin or something or money. Okay, so we're going to type in insert money. Now, anything that J option pane returns. Okay, so let me just wanted to space this out so it doesn't get confusing. Let's see. Okay, I'll just space it out just so it doesn't get confusing for anyone. Okay, so show input dialog. Okay, so anything that a user types, okay, is going to be returned as a string. So first it's going to show this to the user and say insert money. And it's going to pop up some kind of text box and allow the user to type in something, right? So when the user types in, let's say, $20, right? Although the user has typed in a number, anything that you type into the J option pane's show input dialog is returned as a string. So even though the user has typed in a number, it's going to be returned as a string. Anything that the J option pane returns is returned as a string. But the thing is, we can't use strings in, let's say, calculations. We can't. So we have to convert that string to a number so we can use it. But because everything that's returned from the J option pane's show input dialog is a string, we have to first create a string to accept that. Okay, to store that. And then later on we can go ahead and convert what is stored in that string variable into a number. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a string variable. I'm going to call it user string input. Now, user string input is just going to store what is returned from the J option pane's show input dialog. Because everything that's returned from the J option pane's show input dialog is a string, we need to create a string variable to store that. So user string input now is going to store that. All right. So the user types in the money, it's going to be stored here. But it's going to be stored here as a string. Everything that's returned is restored as a string. That's why we are storing it here. In order to use a number, in order to have a number to use, we need to convert what is stored in the user string input to a number. In this case, we have to convert it to a double because we are dealing with money here. The user can type in $2.50, 2.50. And because it's a decimal, some kind of a decimal, we have to store it in a double variable. So first off, we need to convert this to a double, right? And the way we convert is I'm going to use one of the methods in Java's wrapper classes. It's going to be double.parse double. So what I'm passing to a double in this case is the content stored in user string input. So I'm passing what's stored in user string input into a double. So what I am passing into a double is user string input. Okay, I am passing user string input to a double. Okay, and once I pass user string input into a double, I need a place to store it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable. It's going to be a double. This double variable is going to hold the user string input over here, that is a type, converted to a double. Right, so oops. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm going to create a double variable. I'm going to call it amount entered. Okay, amount entered. Actually, I'm going to go one step further and just type in user, because I like doing that. Just so I know. So I'm going to call it user amount entered. So this is going to be the user amount entered, right? And once this method has converted the user string input into a double, I'm going to go ahead and store it in user amount entered here. So now we'll have the amount stored in user amount entered. Okay. So now we have it. All right. So let's see what's next. So instead of displaying images the program will randomly select a word from the following list. Okay, so to select a word, the program can generate a random number in the range of 0 through 5. Okay, all right. So let's work on this. To select a word, the program can generate a random number in the range of 0 through 5. Since we're going to be using random numbers, we need to import the random class so we can use the methods in a random class to generate random numbers, right? We're going to first create a random object and then use the methods in a random class to generate random numbers. So since we're going to be using random numbers, I'm going to go ahead and import the random class. So to import the random class, I'm going to type import java.util.random. And once we've imported the random class and given this program or this program access to the random class, let's go ahead and create a random object. Okay, so I'm going to create a random object and I'm going to call it random. I'm creating a new random object in memory. Memory like this. All right, so now I have the random object here. I can use a random object to now generate random numbers, right? It said instead of displaying images, the program will randomly select a word from the following list. Select a word, the program can generate a random number in the range of 0 through 5. Okay, so we're generating a random number in the range of 0 through 5, inclusive. So we're generating 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to use a random object, that random object that I created here, okay, which is called random. I'm going to use it to generate a random integer in the range of 0 through 5. So I'm going to call random. I'm using a random object. I'm going to call the next int method. Right. So if I leave it as it is now, it's going to generate a random object from 0 to positive 2 billion and something. Right. That's the range of an integer. I'm not sure if this also covers negative numbers, but if it does cover covers negative numbers, it's going to generate it's going to generate integers from negative 2 billion to positive 2 billion, around that range. Yeah, there's an exact figure for that. I don't have it memorized. But as far as I can remember, it's going to generate a positive number, or it's going to generate integers from 0 to basically the max range, the max of the range of integers, which is around 2 billion. But that's too much. We don't need all of that. We only need from 0 to 5. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. All right. So to do that, I'm going to type in 6 here. And what this is going to now generate, it's going to generate numbers from 0 to 5. 6 is not included. So 6 is like the upper limit. Or 6 is like the limit, but it's not included. So if I say 7, it's going to generate numbers from 0. It starts from 0. 0 to 6. 7 is not included. If I say 10, it's going to generate numbers from 0 to 9. 10 is not included. So 10 is like the limit, but not included. So now I'm going to type in 6, and that's going to generate numbers from 0 to 5. And that's exactly what we need here. So once you generate numbers from 0 to 5, I want it stored in a variable, because that number, this number is what we're going to be using. Sorry. This number is what we're going to be using to represent these strings, right? So it says, to select a word, the program can generate a random number in the range of 0 through 5. If the number is 0, then it represents cherries. If the number is 1, then the selected word is oranges. So this number is what's going to represent these words in this list. Okay, and since it starts from 0, I'm just going to. It looks like the indexes of these words. Okay, so this indexes starts from 0. So this is represented by 0. This is represented by 1. You can call it anything. You can call it word representation, word number, or something. But I'm going to call mine word index. Okay, so word index is going to. Okay, first of all, we need to declare it. So I'm going to go ahead and declare an integer variable, because this is going to return an integer. I'm going to declare an integer variable, and I'm going to call it. It's going to be an int. I'm going to call it word index, like this. So word index is now going to store the random number that's generated from this range. So any random number from 0 to 5, it's going to be stored here, word index. So now, since we have that number, we can create an if statement to check to see what that number is, and based on what that number is, we can associate whatever word it matches to, to, let's say, a variable or something, or we can know what word was selected. So if it's 0, it's cherries. If it's 1, it's oranges. 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So let's create an if statement and say, first let me create the structure. So if word index, right, is equal to double equals, I'm using double equals to compare. If I said equal to, then I'm assigning what's on the right, okay, what's on the right of this to what's on the left. But if I'm using double equals, then I'm comparing what's on the right to what's on the left to say that is what's on the right equal to what's on the left, right? So I'm just saying if word index is equal to 1, okay, I'm just comparing now. If I did 1 equal, I'll be assigning 1 to word index. But because I'm doing double equals, I'm just comparing to say if is 1 equal to the content of word index. So if 1 is equal to the content of word index, then I want to, associate. I want to say that, hey, cherries was selected. I'm going to create a string variable, and I'm going to call it word. And word is basically going to store whatever word was selected based on this number. Okay, based on this word index. Sorry, based on this word index, not this, based on word index. So if word index is 1, then that means that cherries was selected, right? So I'm going to store cherries in word. Later on, I can display it and I can see what word was selected. After this if statement, I can display what the content in word to see what word was selected. So if word index is equal to 1, then word is going to be equal to, and remember, word is a string over here that's going to store the word that was selected. So word is going to be equal to cherries. And I'm going to basically create an else if and keep going. So else if word index is equal to 2, then the word that was selected is, according to this list, oranges. Okay. Oops, sorry. I'm supposed to start from 0 actually, 0, and then this is 1. That's what the program said we should do. I'm sorry, I started from 1 because I don't know. I thought we were starting from 1. Okay, the program said we should generate a random number in the range of 0 through 5. If the number is 0, then the selected word is cherries. Okay, so let's do it that way. If it's 0, then cherries is the word selected. If it's 1, oranges is the word selected. And so on and so forth. Okay. So else if word index is equal to 1, then the word selected was oranges, right? So word is now going to be equal to oranges. Oops. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the rest. I'm just going to copy it since I have it here. I'll just copy the space as well. And I'll just paste it here like this and say else if word index is equal to 2, then the selected word is 0, 1, 2. Okay, plums. And then I'm going to paste it and say else if word index is equal to 3. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3. And the selected word is bells, right? And then I'm going to paste another one and say else if the word index is equal to 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then that means the selected word is melons, okay? And then lastly, else if I have it copied. So else if word index is equal to 5, then the word selected is, okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the word selected is bars, okay? So bars. So basically, when this program runs, it's going to generate a random number and check to see what number that word index is. And then based on the number that word index is, it's going to assign what word was selected. It's going to store what word was selected in, or what word this number represents in the variable word. We can even go ahead and display it. We can go ahead and display it and see what the word is. So I'm going to just display it just to see what happens. So I'm going to create a JOption pane. I'm going to type a JOption pane dot show message dialog method, okay, and that's going to display it. It works like a system.out.print statement, but except that this is for the JOption pane, and it's going to display something using Egyptian paint. It takes a couple of arguments. I'm going to type in null, and null is basically going to center that window in the screen on the screen. The second argument is what you want to show. In this case, I want to show the content of word. So I'm going to let's go ahead and compile it and just test to see what word was selected. So I'm going to compile it. I'm going to create a folder for slot machine simulation, and I'll call it slot machine simulation, and then I'll save it in here. Okay, so we have a couple of errors. Let's see what happened. Variable word might not have been initialized. Okay, so over here, we need to go ahead and initialize it. Okay, we need to tell the program initially what it is. So I'm going to initially, when it's created, it's nothing. Okay, it's not even a space. If I do this, then there's a space. But if I do this, then that means it's nothing. Okay, it's a word that's nothing. So I'm going to compile this, and it works. I'm going to run it and see what happens. So lastly, anytime you use Egyptian paint, we have to call system.exit. And system.exit, and I'm going to pass in 0 here. System.exit is basically going to terminate and the extra thread that is caused by the Egyptian paint. And I am sending 0, okay, I'm passing in 0 as an argument, which is going to be returned, right? Later on, I can check to see what value was returned, and if 0 was returned, it's normally an indication that this program ran successfully, got to this point, and was able to return 0. Okay, it's normally an indication that the program ran successfully and got to this point. Okay, if I didn't get the 0 as a return value, then it's very possible something else happened. All right, so that's what system.exit does. All right. So I'm going to now compile this and then run it and see what happens. So it's going to ask us to insert money, okay, but since we're not doing anything with the user amount entered, nothing's going to happen. It's going to generate a random number, check to see what word it is, and display it. So I'm just going to type in something for now, hit OK. And it says the word that was selected was bells. Let's try again. I'm just going to type in something, and it says the word that was selected was oranges. All right. One last time. Now bars was selected. Okay, so that means it's working. It's able to generate the random numbers, right? So let's continue with a question. So over here, the program should randomly select a word from this list three times, okay, and display all 3 of the words. Okay. At the moment, we have selected one word and displayed one word. So we want to do this 3 times. We want to select a word and then display it, select another word, display it, select another word, display it, and so on and so forth, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loop. Okay, that's going to run 3 times and do this 3 times. So I'm going to create the structure. It's going to be a for loop. Now I'm going to start from 1 all the way to 3. So I'm going to represent a variable that represents. Sorry, I'm going to create a variable that represents each basically like each word that's displayed, something like that, or each word that's displayed. All right, and I don't know what to call it. I'm going to call it word count. Okay, I'm going to just create an integer variable. I'm going to call it word count. It's going to represent basically how many. Basically, I'm sure there's a word. There's a word for it. There's a name for it. Maybe reels. I saw it somewhere like reels. I don't know, but this word count is going to represent basically each of the words. Okay, each of the slots. That's each of the. If there were images, there will be each of the images, okay? But in this case, they're words, so each of the words is going to represent each of the words. So word count is word count is basically each of them, right? So you can call it anything, as long as if it makes sense to you, can call it anything. I just wanted you to know what it represents. All right, so I'm going to start from 1. So I'm going to initialize it to 1, and as long as word count is less than or equal to 3. Okay, so 3 is I'm starting from 1 to 3. As long as word count is less than or equal to 3, then do what's in this loop, and before Just indent this. Do what's in this loop, and then before you come back up and check to see if word count is less than or equal to 3, then go ahead and add 1 to word count, and then repeat the process. So basically, we are starting from 1. We are checking to see if word count is less than or equal to 3, doing what's in the loop, adding 1 to word count, and then coming back again to check. So basically, this loop is going to loop 3 times. It's starting from 1, and as long as the word count is less than or equal to 3, it's going to keep looping. As long as word count is not less than or equal to 3, then it stops. So basically, it's moving from 1 to 3. So it's going to loop 3 times. Okay. So basically, what should happen in any time this loop iterates is we want to generate a random number, right? We want to generate a random number, store it in word index, check to see what number it is, and associate what word that number represents. Okay, so we're going to store that, associate what word that number, what word represents that number, what word that number represents. We're going to store that word in the word variable and then display it, right? But since we are doing it 3 times, so I'm going to cut all of this because we want to do all of this. I'm going to cut it. Since we are doing it 3 times in a loop, I'm going to go ahead and paste it in a loop like this. And I'm going to indent this. Hold on 1 second. I'm just selecting because this is indented properly, but these are not. So I'm just going to select them and hit the tab key, which is going to just indent them. All right. So we're going to do this 3 times and then display it 3 times. So let's see what happens. Well, at the moment it's going to be jammed together. So I'm displaying the word. I'm just going to concatenate with a new line character, which is \n. So together the \n is, it makes the new line character. And what this new line character does when the interpreter sees the \n together, it creates a new line. It takes the header to the next line. So anything that follows this statement or this word, this thing that was printed, is displayed on the next line. So I'm going to compile this and then run it and see what happens. It's hit money. It's not doing anything because we are storing it here, but we're not doing anything with it. So I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so what is happening is, so it's displaying, so another window is going to pop up, right? Another window is going to pop up because the first time it's displaying a option pane window, a dialog. And then if I hit OK, the loop is going to go again, display this, the loop is going to go again, and then display this. So another window is going to pop up, plums. Another window is going to pop up and say oranges, and then now we are done. But we don't necessarily want that. We don't necessarily want windows to be popping up. We want to have one window that displays everything, right? So because of that, we don't want to display this yet, right? We don't want to display this yet. We should concatenate. I'm going to create a string. Okay, I'm going to create a string here. I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it. Sorry about that. I'm going to call it output string. And output string initially is going to be nothing, right? What we're going to do with this output string is we're going to be concatenating to the string. We're going to be adding strings to it. We're going to be joining strings to it and form a long string, like a huge string, like a long string, okay? And then after we've formed all our strings together, we've concatenated strings to this string, we can just go ahead and display it once. And it's going to basically create one window and display everything on it once. So that's what I want to do. So anytime, instead of using geometry pane over here, okay, so anytime it gets a word, all right? Anytime it gets a word, let's go ahead and concatenate to that string. Initially it's nothing. So anytime it gets a word, let's go ahead and say output string, okay, is going to be equal to whatever is stored in output string, okay, concatenated with word, okay. So these are strings. So when I use the plus sign, I'm concatenating. I'm just joining another string to it. So output string is now going to be equal to whatever is stored in output string concatenated with word, right? So this whole string can also be written as this, which means what I'm concatenating to output string, okay, is equal to word, okay. I am concatenating word, okay, to output string, okay. That's how it reads. And then once I concatenate the word, I want to also take the cursor to the next line by creating a new line character here. And then the next time, so now word will store the first word. The next time this loop runs, it's going to join the second word to output string, but before it joins it, it's going to create a new line. The next time it loops, it's going to join the third string to output string. Before it joins that third string to the output string, it's going to create a new line. So basically, we're going to have the words joined to output string displayed vertically, right? So now after we are done with the loop, we can come down here now and just display what's stored in output string. So option pane dot show message dialog, and now it's going to center the dialog or the window, and then what we want to display now is output string, because we have everything in there, and it's just going to display once and just show us what's stored in output string. Okay, all right, so I'm going to compile this and then run it. So I'm going to enter anything and hit OK, and see now we have balls, cherries, and bells. All right. Okay. So now we'll design this later on, but for now let's just keep it this way. Let's move on with the question. We are doing this just step by step and breaking it down. Okay. So we've done this 3 times. We've displayed it 3 times. Let's see what it says. It says if none of the randomly selected words match, the program will inform the user that he or she has won $0. So let's continue from there. If none of the randomly selected words match, the program will inform the user that he or she has won $0. Okay, so we have to have a way to compare the words. We have to have the way to say, hey, if this word is equal to this word, and this word is equal, stuff like that. We need to have a way to compare the words, right? As it stands, we are only just concatenating the word to output string. So we only have this variable word that's just storing each word at a time, right? We don't have all the words stored in variables to compare them. So that's a problem, right? So we can go ahead, right? We can go ahead and then, generate 3 random numbers over here. But I mean, even outside the loop, when it was outside the loop, not now when it's in the loop. When it was outside the loop, we can go ahead and generate, let's say, 3 random numbers here and stored in 3 separate variables, and that's like when I think about it, that's like a long way to do it, but or that's a very complex it's not necessarily, it's not really efficient. The proper way to use it, since we have the loop, we can use the loop to do it, right? So don't get confused. I'll explain. All right, so what I want to do is I want to each time it finds a word, each time there's a word here, I want to store it in a variable and then number it. I want to say this is the first word, this is the second word, this is the third word. We already know that word count is looping. Word count is starting from 1 all the way to 3, right? And this is going to be increment. This word count is going to be incremented. So the very first time this loop runs, it's going to create a number, store the first word in word, right? Because this is looping for the first time, because the word count is 1, it's going to store the first word, right? So I know that when word count is 1, then I'm generating the first word. So I'm going to create another string variable over here. I'm going to actually 3 string variables. I'm going to call them string word 1, and then another string variable, I'm going to call it word 2. Another string variable, I'm going to call it word 3. All right, so the very first time I know when word count is 1, I'm generating the first word. So I'm going to create an if statement in the for loop and say that if word count is equal to, again, I'm using double equals to compare. If word count is equal to 1, okay, that means we are generating the first word. So if we're generating the first word, then store whatever word was stored in word. Let's store that in word 1. Okay, so store that in word 1. So word 1 is now going to be equal to whatever word was stored in word. Whatever string over here, whatever fruit was stored in this variable word. This loop is going to come back up again, change word count to 2, and when word count is 2, and this is iterate, this is running through this loop for the second time, it's generating the second word, right? So in this case, if it comes to this if statement and realizes the word count is not equal to 2, it's not equal to 1, it's 2, it's not equal to 1, okay? It's not going to do any of this. But if it's 2, so I'm going to create an else if and say else if word count, is equal to 2, then I know I'm generating the second word. So in this case, then store the second word in word 2, because word will hold that second word, and it's going to be stored in word 2. I'm going to do the same thing for when word count is equal to 3. So if word count is equal to 3, then we want to store whatever word was generated in word 3. Okay, so the word that was generated and stored in word, we want to store the content of the word variable into word 3. So by the time we are done with this, we're going to have word 1, word 2, and word 3. So we know now we will have the words stored in variables. We can actually use those variables and compare them. So that's a way to store the words in the variable in each variable, word 1, word 2, word 3, and then now since we have them in variables, you can go ahead and compare them, right? So now that I have the words stored in variables, I can go ahead and even display it. Now I can say, instead of so I don't want to display it in the loop. I want to display it once I'm done here, right? So I still have my output string. I can use it. Well, I still have my output string, so I can go ahead and use it. So I'm going to say this. Once it's done, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's see. I'm going to say output string, okay? I'm going to concatenate it with it. I'm going to concatenate output string with it and say output string now is going to be equal to, I'm forming the string now. I'm joining strings to it. So it's going to be equal to, it's going to be equal to whatever I stored in output string. I wanted to use a shortcut, but I'll do that later. So it's going to be whatever I stored in output string, which is already an empty string, concatenated with something, right? Let's say if I wanted to just say add the string to it, I can just add a string to it. But again, this whole string can be written as output string plus equals. Right, plus equals. Or you know what, just to make things simple, I'll leave it like that. So output string is going to be equal to whatever I stored in output string, concatenated with, now I want to concatenate word 1. Okay, word 1. Okay, and followed by, I'm concatenating again, a space. No, I'm going to use a tab. A backslash T now is a tab. When the interpreter sees backslash T, it sees a tab, and it creates a tab in here, right here. It creates a tab. I'm going to create I'll create one tab for now, and I'll concatenate it with word 2, and then I'll create another tab, and then I'll concatenate it with word 3, right? And then after that, I'll display output string. Over here, I'm just joining strings, or joining strings to output string, and over here I'm displaying what has been joined to output string so far. So I'm just going to compile this, and then I have an error. So let's see. Sorry. It says that variable word 1 might not have been initialized. Okay, so it doesn't know what word 1 is initially, right? So let's go ahead and set them to nothing initially. The strings initially, they are nothing. There's nothing stored in them. And over here, once it finds a word, it's going to store whatever word in it's going to basically initialize these variables. I mean, it's been initialized here already. It's going to store values in these variables once it gets here. So by the time it gets here, you'll have something in there. But initially, it's nothing. Sorry about that. I'm going to copy. What do I see? Why do I keep using different words sometimes? I'm going to compile, and then I'll run this. Just type in anything. It's not really doing anything here. I'll hit OK, and now we see cherries, bells, melons. So this is now acting as our screen that shows the 3 words each time we run it, right? I'm going to just go ahead and make this look beautiful a little bit. I'm going to over here, I'm going to concatenate with I want to put them in kind of brackets. So I'm going to create a string here. I'm going to create a bracket like this, concatenate it to this word, and then I'm going to close it with another bracket here with a space here and a space. Create a tab, open another bracket with a space, close the bracket with a space, create a tab, and then open this with a space, close that bracket like this. So let's see how it looks now. I'm going to compile it and then run. Type in anything. It's not really working, and then hit OK. So now that's run with square brackets. I want to just put some more spaces in these just so I can really separate them. So instead of using one tab, I'm going to create a couple more tabs. So second tab, third tab, fourth tab, fifth tab. So I'll use 5 for now. Just copy all these, and then just paste them here. So I have now 5 tabs separating them. So I'll copy this and then run it and see how it looks. Okay, now there's spaces in between them. Just going to add just one more. Okay, so compile it. Just see how it looks like. Okay, so now it's better. So now this is going to act as our screen. Okay, so when you pull the lever, you're going to see this, and based on we're going to see a combination. Okay, these are generated randomly. So sometimes, if you're lucky, both of these will be the same, or all 3 will be the same, and then we're going to get there. Okay, so let's continue. All right. So where are we? Okay, so if none of the randomly selected words match, the program will inform the user that he or she has won $0. Okay, so now we have the word stored in word 1, word 2, and word 3. So we can go ahead and compare it and test that condition to see if none of the randomly selected words match. We can test it, and then if they all don't match, then we display this message that they won $0. Okay, so before we go ahead and display anything, let's see. Before we go ahead and display the whole thing, because output string will be like the final thing we display, because we will form all the strings we want to display. We're going to join all of them to output string and then display it once, and it's going to display everything together, right? So what I'm going to do is now create an if statement, which is going to basically compare the words and see what's in them to see if they match or they don't match, or basically what condition is listed here. So if none of the randomly selected words match, okay, the program will inform the user that he or she has won $0. So that means if none of them match, if the word 1 is not equal to word 2, word 2 is not equal to word 3, word 1 is not equal, if none of them match, then let's go ahead and do that. So before I do this, let me just go ahead and create a comment here to illustrate how this is going to work. So I'm just going to say word 1, word 2, and then word 3, I guess. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. If word 1 is not equal to word 2, and then word 1 is not equal to word 3, and word 2 is not equal to word 3, then that means they all don't match. And let me explain why. If word 1 is not equal to word 2, then that means word 2 is not equal to word 1. If word 1 is not equal to word 3, then that means word 3 is not equal to word 1. If word 2 is not equal to word 3, then that means word 3 is not equal to word 2. So in that case, then that means none of them match. So we're going to use that same logic to create a Boolean expression here to test that. So I'm going to say if word 1, okay, is not equal to, so this is how we say not equal to, exclamation mark and equal. So not equal to, this means not. Okay, it's a negation operator, so not equal to. So if word 1 is not equal to word 2, okay, and since these are together, I'm just going to surround them with parentheses just to enforce them and be safe. Okay, so if word 1 is not equal to word 2, and I'm going to use two ampersand sign, which means end. Okay, so if word 1 is not equal to word 2, since I have this, I'm going to copy it and just we change the values, paste it and change the values. So if word 1 is not equal to word 2, okay, and word 1 is not equal to word 3, okay, and word 2 is not equal to word 3. Okay, so if word 1 is not equal to word 3, sorry. If word 1 is not equal to word 2, word 1 is not equal to word 3, word 2 is not equal to word 3, then that means that they don't match. Then that means none of them match, right? So in that case, the program says we should go ahead and display that you have won $0. Inform the user that he or she has won $0, right? Okay, so that's, since we have the output string, okay, since we have the output string stored here, we can add this string to it before we display it finally here. So I'm going to concatenate to the output string. If this is the case, we're going to concatenate to the output string and say that. So output string, okay, is going to be equal to what is stored in output string. Okay, concatenated. Okay, so it's already stored. What is already stored in output string, which is going to be whatever is stored in output string, concatenated with. Now remember, this is just going to display the words, right? After that, there was no line break. I want to display this. I want to display that you have $0 on the next line. So in order for me to display that, in order for me to create that line, I'm going to create a new line character, right? Which is, so this is just a new line character. I don't know if I explained it above here somewhere. I didn't. I don't think so. All right. So \n is a new line character. It basically takes the cursor from where it's at now to the next line, and anything that follows that new line character is displayed on the next line. So I want to create, after I display this 3 words, I want to create a new line character and then display whatever that's I'm going to type here next. And we are concatenating to our output string, and then we'll display it finally once we're done. So once I create a new line character over here, I want to go ahead and say you have $0, which is what the program says we should say here. You have he or she has $10. You have $10, and terminate it.